Good afternoon, Instagram. Welcome to Afternoons with Ems. I'm Emily Telvik. This is our 7th episode, and today it's a little bit different. I am having my good friend Corina Tripon, the coach at Ginger Root, join us, and she's going to be joining us remotely from her new home in San Diego. And I'm so excited to have her on, and we're going to be talking today about resilience. So I just want, first of all, to talk to you a little bit about what Best Next Steps is. Best Next Steps just is a business that was born out of a passion project of mine with a belief that sometimes all we need to do is to take our best next step in one area of our life to gain some momentum and change the trajectory of our whole story. And I love women so much, and I believe that there are so many incredible stories out there, and I want to tell them. This is my Afternoons with Ems, is a way that I can spotlight the incredible women in my life and share their stories. So join along with me. I am waiting for Corina to ask to join. Let me see if there's something I need to be doing on my end oh yes, okay, here she comes. And we are gonna go live, dive into resilience. And that topic is something that is, there she is.
Hi, friend.
Hello.
Okay, your screen is way wider than mine. How do I make mine wider?
Whiter or wider?
Wider.
Girl, you're asking the wrong person.
Okay, never mind.
Is it because I have a bigger phone?
I don't think so. I think we have the same phone, don't we?
I don't know.
Okay. Okay. Can you see me okay?
You look great. I love that hat. I think you were wearing that hat the last time you were on.
No, I was wearing a much bigger one.
Oh, okay. I don't Okay. How are you?
I'm so good. I'm so good. Got my workout in this morning, and I have Cash next to me. So we're gonna do our best to make it through.
This is how we do it, right?
Yeah. But we're taking a little bit of a nap and then gonna hit the pool later. So
tell everyone.
Pool ready.
Okay, for anyone tuning in who doesn't know you, tell everyone who you are, what you do, and about your most recent journey. Like what?
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so my name is Corina Tripon, and I am a growth coach for female entrepreneurs, for audacious female entrepreneurs. I help women through their growth process and really set big, scary, seemingly unattainable goals, and I help them transition from where they are to where they want to be. And I love to, just like you, support women in all areas of their life as they are pursuing versions of themselves that are bigger and better and more aligned and more rooted. So recently, my family and I decided that, well, not recently, I feel like it's been in the works, but we decided that we wanted to transition from Spokane, Washington to San Diego, California. So the last year, we've really kind of put together a plan to help transition us over to San Diego. And we just moved this last weekend to Carlsbad. So we're settling in. We still have boxes everywhere, but we have this, today for the first time I drove with Cruz to a friend's house for a workout. And it was so surreal to just go to a friend's house. It's so cool that we've made friends. I'm so fortunate to have friends here already. And just to have a new normal and kind of start to create new normals. I was sitting in gratitude in the car, like, this is so cool. We worked so hard to get here, and now here I am driving down a new street, setting new patterns for a new life. And we spent so much time thinking and kind of trying to conceptualize what life would be like. And now we get to kind of eat the fruit of our really hard labor.
Yeah, it was really hard. So we're going to talk today about resilience. And I mean, I think that's something that you showed in spades through the last 4 months as you guys.
Yeah, the last 4 months were rough. The last 4 months were super rough. And I think probably the roughest because you are just about to get into that new phase. So I think everything just kind of escalates. But for us, like, we put our house on the market really, really early. Well, 4 months ago, we had a buyer right away. The buyer, like, the deal fell through. We had another buyer and that deal fell through. And now we're in our third buying situation. So just to kind of experience so many deviations of the plan. You okay? Oh, are you okay? I think we're good.
Okay.
So I think it's normal to experience such hardship right when you're about to step into the new phase, but it certainly, I think that's where a lot of people could have certainly quit too, because it does get so much harder right before you have a breakthrough, or right before you reach that goal. It just, by nature, I don't know why, but it's seemingly the hardest. It's like when you're running a marathon, which I've never done, but when you're running, period, it's the hardest, that last part as you're about to finish and you so desperately want to quit. That's what it felt like for the last 3 to 4 months for us. So yeah, it's been a tough period.
It was a long period. So the definition of resilience is the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or toughness. And so I define resilience basically as that muscle that won't allow me to stay down. Like, no matter what circumstance happens in my life, or stuck belief, or whatever it is that I'm working through, to me, resilience is knowing that there is more on the other side and fighting for that. It's a belief that God has more to this story for me than just this hard place. So what does resilience mean to you?
I think it's exactly that. I think it's choosing to have audacity in believing that there's something more, and that, because I think that it's so easy to believe that what you're currently experiencing, your current circumstance, is it, because it's just so you can feel it, you can, like, you're experiencing it. So when you have faith in something else, it requires you to just, to have incredible belief. You can't see it, there's no guarantee, and that you have to believe in something so much more than yourself or the tangibles. And resilience is consistently having that kind of audacious faith, that kind of faith that says, my current is not it. This is not the end, no matter how hard.
Hi, buddy.
Can you say hi? Can you say hi?
Hi, sweet boy.
That's you.
That's you. No face.
So, and I honestly think being able to still have that faith without, with a sense of positivity, I think, to me, is resilience. And I think not losing that positivity is the hardest, but the most
struggle. Yeah.
The biggest struggle. Okay,
so in my life, I can struggle with a complete Eeyore syndrome if I'm there for too long. You know, if you are in a season of challenge and you have a vision of more, but that season feels like, on the other side of it is a better story, but the season is just going on so long, I can get a little, like, that little black rain cloud. And so I kind of know what I need to do to shake myself out of it. I usually go for a workout. I read my Bible. I marinate in God's word. I put on the worship music or the hip hop, whatever it is. I schedule fun time with friends who will speak life over me. I do a date night with my husband. I do something to make me feel pretty. I accomplish something that feels small, but that feels like an accomplishment. Like, those are things that I do to get myself into a better mindset of resilience. What are some things that you do? Because I think we can just get stuck.
Yeah.
And it's almost like wading through mud. You're just trudging.
Right. And I think the bigger the thing that you're trying to accomplish is, the longer your period of resilience has to, like, it's just a longer period. It's a longer transitional period. And so I think that and honestly, the most, I mean, we all know that those seasons, those like transitional seasons and the periods of time are meant to be more than just us waiting. And it's not just, sometimes it can feel like a torture chamber because you're like in process for so long and you just want to get to the other side. Like you want to be done with whatever this season is, or whatever this waiting period it is, or whatever this process is, and just like put an end to the chapter. But I think one of the biggest, the things that has helped me to cope and to be more resilient is to look for the lesson that I'm needing to learn. Because I think that the more that I try to buck against the current whatever is happening, the more I miss out on. So I'm trying to protect myself by like kind of grit and bearing through it and not experiencing the pain of the transition. But the more I can look for lessons, and the more I can look for what is God trying to teach me here? What am I supposed to refine in me? How do I learn here, instead of just like kind of like closing my eyes and gritting through and racing through a hard like season of life, or racing through the forest that is freaking me out and scary. So I look for lessons because I want it to be worthwhile. I want the struggle to be worthwhile and not just struggle for the sake of struggle, because I think I'm such a thinker and I'm such an analyzer that I want to be able to draw lessons from it. So I'm looking for, what do I need to learn from this current situation? And then where am I digging into lies? Like, where's my insecurity creating lies, and where is really truth? Because I feel like when you're uncomfortable through these seasons, it's really easy to rely on false stories to kind of cope and get you through. And the less you rely on these false stories, the more you can learn from whatever the situation is trying to teach you. So for me, it's refining that ability to root and make decisions and gather information out of truth, which requires a lot of faith, belief, and security. Oh, am I losing you?
Sorry, I had an issue, but we're back. Keep going.
Okay. So that's one of the coping, I guess, the ways to cope and be more resilient is to look for and refine the ability to root in truth and not in false narratives and false stories and insecurity. So as I'm dealing through whatever situation, or in that transitional period, I think it's easy to not feel the pain of the transition and try to like race to the end, to the other side. So I lean in, and I really do. It's the hardest thing, but I try to understand, like, what is this trying to teach me, and where's the truth of all of these circumstances that make me so uncomfortable, and where are the lies, and where am I creating lies? Where am I creating stories and making decisions out of lies? So for example, when our house kept falling through, a thought of mine was, maybe we're not supposed to move. Like, this is like where maybe California is not for us, and we're jeopardizing our future. We're jeopardizing our businesses. We're jeopardizing our children's lives by making this decision to move to San Diego. And I think that I could have created and made decisions out of that fear, because the fear was, our house is not going to sell. We're not going to, like, it keeps falling apart, and we're just not meant to go, so we should stop. So if I would have made decisions based out of that fear, we probably wouldn't have moved. I would have said, this isn't for us. We're not, like, God is obviously telling us no. And you're kind of like interpreting the circumstances filtered through fear, not filtered through faith. And so you make erroneous decisions because you're creating false stories.
So I want to stop you there, because how do you in your own life make that distinction? So because I 100% agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that our negative self-talk can 100% become valid to us as reasons why we're not pursuing the dreams or the goals, or the more that we see on the other side of a tough circumstance. Yeah. But I always am struggling to find that filter between when is this God giving us a hard no, or when is this ourselves giving like our own BS, allowing, like giving ourselves the hard no based on fear. So how do you make that? I think that's a really important distinction, and but it's a hard one to figure out.
It is a hard one. And this is something that I work with clients quite frequently on, because understanding where the truth and the lie starts and ends is tricky, because lies are very convincing, because there is kind of an element of truth. But I think you have to get very vulnerable with yourself and really analyze, is this truth? Like, is the narrative, well, if our house isn't selling, that means that we're not. So this is the thought process. My house isn't selling, so it means that it's not God's will for us to move. Is that actually the case? Like, why would God communicate in that way? And if I'm prayerful with my life and with the decisions that I make for my family, then wouldn't God tell me in prayer, in meditation, in my spirit? Why would he communicate to me in this seemingly punishing way by making the house situation? Like, the house situation is just it's just a circumstance. It does not have to dictate. I do not have to make it this giant sign, because if my relationship with God is one that is intimate, where he is he is leading my thoughts, and he's a part of my life on the daily, then we're in communication, and it doesn't align with God's, I guess, character in our relationship, right? Like, I feel like that would be beating me over the head, and I feel like it's a very discouraging and a very demeaning way to try to course correct me. I feel like he would settle that in my spirit. And that's the thing, is that lies don't sit well in your spirit. Right. Lies will protect your ego, and lies will protect you from risk, but lies are fueled by insecurity. And if you kind of go down the road of your lie, you can see that it's rooted in something that it doesn't settle with your spirit.
So I just want to marinate here for a minute, because I think it's such an important point. So if you felt like, okay, your house isn't selling, and there's all this thought process going through, like maybe we're not supposed to move, or why is this so hard? That's just life circumstances, whatever. Yeah, that's going on. But you feel like if his true intention for you would not have been to go to San Diego, he would have changed the desire of your heart to not go to San Diego. Yeah, exactly. See, that's where I think it's so important. If the desire of your heart isn't changing, and you're praying, and you're asking, and you're consciously seeking more, and it's not changing, then I think it's God's green light. He's like, yes, I want you to go. Yeah. But life, it's still going to happen, right? Yes. And that's the thing. It's like, we are not meant to not experience hardships. We're not meant to not experience bumps in the roads or hurdles. I think that, again, if you're resilient and you're seeking to learn from these experiences, having such deviations from your plan, you always have these best laid out plans, and then stuff happens and your plans go to crap, and then you think, oh my gosh, this is a giant sign. Well, no, it's just opportunities for you to refine parts of yourself, to be more disciplined in your self-talk, to be more disciplined in being creative. When your plans go awry, when you aren't meeting certain milestones or expectations, it's always opportunity for you to grow. Get creative about the growth that is presented to you, instead of trying to just protect yourself and buckle down and grit through it. Be vulnerable in the process and learn from whatever it is. It's the only way to grow. It's the only way to grow. And I think it's often, obviously there's a purpose and a plan for your family to be in San Diego, for you to be in San Diego, what's going to happen there. But the journey to get there, the learning experiences, and the new areas that you experience growth through this process,
Mm-hmm.
That's invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Especially,
really is.
Especially I think in the business that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Helping other women go, you know, if you've lived it, you're
yes.
walking the walk. So there is another story that when, as through getting to know you, it just, when it came out like casually, but I think it's a great one to tell people how long you fought for citizenship, that you did not ever give up getting your citizenship.
Yeah.
How, so will you tell that story? Because that is like resilience from like a tiny age through adulthood of trying to get your citizenship. It wasn't like, that was a long time on that struggle bus. And
yeah.
you
Yeah.
give up on it.
Yeah. No, and honestly, I've never thought about being resilient through that process, because I think I never questioned that it would come to fruition. But it was definitely, I mean, so my family immigrated here. I came here when I was 7, and I didn't earn my citizenship until I was 21. No, that's not true. I think I was 20 because I was married, and I think my husband always talks about how I could have segued and kind of taken a shortened path and gotten my citizenship through marrying him. But I was already on a path, and I wanted to remain on that path and honor the process that I had, that my family had started from the very, very young. Hi. So, it took a lot longer, but there were definitely, it's not like I mean, it took so long because I think the process does take a really long time. When we entered the country, I think immigration was working on cases that had entered the country 10 years prior. So it was just it's a long legal process. I think during 3rd or 4th grade, I can't remember, I was put in deportation proceedings because I came here separately from my family, and I had to go to deportation court and build a case. So my parents faced the risk of me having to be deported back to Romania, and they still were here because they all had separate cases. And so I remember asking my friends and my teachers to write character letters for me, and my friend said, "Corina's a really good friend and deserves to stay in America." My teacher said she's a great student. I did have a lot of attitude even early then, but so I think, yeah, the process really was long and arduous. I didn't know it at the time, so I ended up being granted a visa extension so that I could stay in process. This whole time, all of these efforts that were made was to remain in the process to eventually go before a judge and plead a case for citizenship. So you had to kind of like battle different hurdles even just to remain in the game, and that did take a really long time. And I remember applying for college my senior year, and I applied to Whitworth. I fell in love with Whitworth in Spokane, and I didn't realize that you had to be a citizen to get granted financial aid. So I applied for financial aid. My parents had no idea. Like, they were just like, if you want to go to college, you got to figure it out, sister. So I applied for financial aid, and then Whitworth came back and said, "Hey, it looks like you're not a citizen, and you do not qualify for financial aid." And I was devastated. I had no idea that was a thing. It makes sense, obviously, but I was a permanent resident at the time. I was legal. It was legal for me to live in the United States, but I just didn't have I didn't have citizenship status. And so I faced, right before all of my friends were preparing to go off to college that summer, I faced potentially not going to college or trying to figure out how to pay for private education without financial aid. And again, I figured it out. Whitworth was so kind to offer me a scholarship, and my parents worked really hard and got different loans and made it happen. So we were resilient even through that hurdle. But it just was one fight after another. And I think the biggest trend is there's always there's always an opportunity to figure it out. And that's one of the things that I learned even in the process in moving our family to California. It wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. it wasn't as clean cut, but there's always some sort of opportunity to figure some sort of problem that you're currently facing out. So if you're looking for opportunities, if you don't like bury yourself in a victim mentality, and I talked about this yesterday, it's been such a giant, like, it's a muscle that I've had to flex that I didn't realize I needed to flex. I don't consider myself someone that has a victim mindset, because I'm resourceful and I'm scrappy and I will figure it out. But it definitely, when your options when your best laid plans go up in smoke, you have to continue to look for the opportunity. And when you refine that and you exercise that muscle, you are so powerful. You become so resilient because you're constantly like, you are never without options. And I firmly believe that. I think that God will always be creative about giving you options.
I think so too. I think one of the hardest struggles can be when we get in our own way, that's one thing. But when existential circumstances get in our way that are out of our control, so many people, I think, take that as an opportunity to just give up.
Yeah.
Oh, like, I didn't get the funding I wanted for college. Maybe I'm not meant to go to college.
Yes.
Or we didn't get the first 2 offers on our house. Maybe we're not supposed to sell our house. Like, I can do my part, but people aren't doing their part. So maybe that's just the end of that story.
Yeah.
But I think,
Hold on.
it's okay, bud. I think so often, and this is just something I'm going to say to the audience, I think so often if we firmly believe that there is more for us, then that is more regardless of the circumstances. That is more regardless of someone else's control in our situation.
Right.
So
Okay. Sorry.
Do you need?
Give me a minute. Give me one minute.
So, okay, we're going to let her have just a quick second. But in my own life, I'm just going to talk just a little bit about resilience in my own life. You know, I started out from a place of encountering sexual abuse as a small age, at a young age. And had I believed, and it was hard for a long time until I did the healing from that. That was something that happened to me that had a huge impact on my life. But I think the stronger I grew and the more I worked through the trauma of that, the more I realized that was something that happened to me, but that didn't control my story. I still got a say in who I wanted to be and how I wanted to live my life. And I still got a say over those personal aspects of my life. Like, just because something had been done to me didn't mean that I still couldn't make a choice, good choices and healthy choices about my own sexuality as an adult, you know, going forward. And I think so often when really traumatic things happen to us that are outside of our control, we can just let it so far derail us because it's so hard.
Yeah.
That I think we lose sight of that we still get a say in that. We might have not had a say in what happened. Like, I didn't have a say in being sexually abused. It was something that happened to me. I was little, the person was much bigger. But what I get a say in now is how I let that impact my adult life.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
And so often people get trapped just in the circumstance that happened and not in where they still have power outside of that.
Right. Yeah. And I think generating your own power is the most powerful, you know what I mean? It's it literally is life changing. So a lot of the work that I do is to empower women, which means to help them understand and be the source, like, understand your own power, tap into your own power, because you're created with it. It's not something that is unique only to a certain whatever people. It's not something that competes with the power of God. Like, you do have power within you. Utilize and yield that power, because that truly brings you into alignment with the woman or the person that God has created for you to be. A lot of times it's much harder to recognize our own power. It takes a lot more work and a lot more resilience and a lot more discipline, because it's much easier to fall back and say, I don't have power. When you're accept being without option, when you put yourself in a victim mentality, you're relinquishing your power. And it's easier because you don't have responsibility to act, to take your own, to create your own opportunity, or to harness that power. It's easier. It's a passive position.
Yeah. And I want people to hear us not saying that we don't understand that there is really traumatic things that happen that can derail you. But but there's so many stories. I just look at all of the stories that came out of World War II as a huge example of, there's so many stories on the other side of terrible circumstances where resilience just shines through, where we see the beauty of people overcoming things that were out of their control, that happened to them, and yet they still chose a life of value. They still chose to make a life that had worth. And to me, that's resilience at its biggest point, like at its highest level. I think when we can take something, I hear my kids, they're like yelling at each other down there for a minute. All the kids are in our shows today, ladies. This is just, we are mamas and
rolls. Yeah, this is how it rolls.
So I just think that I crave stories like that, or I reach for them, I look for them, because I find them so encouraging that we can always be more than the circumstances happening to us.
Yeah.
But so and maybe we already touched on this, but where do you think that you, I think so often, like when we encounter roadblocks, we need to camp in the belief that does not mean stop.
Yes.
That hard doesn't mean stop.
Yes. Yes.
It's just, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I just think it means reroute.
Yeah. Deviate, pivot. I think that, shoot, I totally lost my train of thought. You asked me a couple of questions ago, a little bit ago, what I do.
Yes.
You kind of rattled off your best next steps for when you're feeling just Eeyore. And I have noticed that I will need like inspiration to look for truth instead of like kind of settle into the lie and the insecurity or my ego. And so podcasting for me is huge, and sermons are huge. So I've really been loving Mike Todd. He's the pastor outside of Oklahoma, who is the first church, maybe it's the first church, I think it is, that has both Black and white congregation members. So it's like the first integrated church. Or like intentionally integrated church, and it's in a space where there was some, I think it was a really horrible, this is terrible, but look up Mike Todd. He's an amazing pastor and speaks such fire and such truth. And I find that when I need to recognize the truth and distinguish between a lie, I need inspiration from other wise people to help me dig out the truth, because it's so much easier to like kind of just settle into the lie. So for me, podcasting is huge. Listening to sermons in particular. Stephen Furtick is always an amazing one for me. And what is the other? Oh, actually spending time in the morning to have space to pray and truly meditate. I think every successful person that I know, and I feel most successful when I have time in the morning to actually sit in prayer and meditate and be thoughtful about my thoughts.
Oh, 100%. I think opening your day in the Word, and then spending time setting your intentions for the day, and then lifting them up for reflection, is paramount in building a resilient life.
Yeah. It's not just like, I don't know, something cute that people say that, like it legitimately works
It does.
Try it out.
Yes.
And it does have a giant, and I notice when it's much easier for me to run on like reaction mode throughout my entire day, and then it slowly slips into weeks when I don't have that time in the morning, when I'm not in, I don't have that space, I don't have that thoughtfulness about my own thoughts, I don't have that intentionality for my day. So try it. It's huge.
I know. It is huge. And I encourage everyone to write it down, because then I think you have, like, you can go back 6 months and be like, wow, this is what I was working on there. Yeah. Look at where we are. Look at where we've pushed through. Yeah. Look at the way God has carried us through that, or given me the tools to accomplish that. And now I have a whole new list of things that I'm working on.
Yeah. And not to mention, I mean, if you're building a business, that's content. That's like authentic, genuine content. If you have a brand that's infused with you, if you're building a business that's infused with you, those are opportunities to create genuine, heartfelt, vulnerable, and authentic content that only will bring more dimension and life to your brand and business that you're building. Yeah. I'm not saying like bare your entire soul onto social media, but be thoughtful about what you're actually sharing, and let it actually be transparent to your thoughts and feelings and process and emotions.
Well, I think audiences love more and more. Everyone's craving some transparency, some authenticity. No one lives a cookie cutter life anymore. And we want to know that someone can relate to us when we're on our own struggle bus.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, I think that that's why so many people like to hear and see the process, is that we can all relate to losing faith. We can all relate to facing one hurdle after another. We can all relate to feeling completely depleted and discouraged. Like everyone has those moments. And I think the fallacy is in thinking that they're successful or someone's successful because they don't experience those things. But the truth is they're successful because they thrive through those things.
Yeah, 100%. I think that success on the other side too of the struggle is the sweetest form of success. Because it's so earned. It's so, you fought for it, and you know the journey that got you there. And it's not, I think when you've clawed your way through a little bit in order to heal or to accomplish a dream, or just to build something out of nothing. And I think that when you stand back and look at that, the road that is curved, that took some hard turns in order to get there, is a much sweeter journey at the end.
Yeah.
And then you're the person that you're supposed to be on the other side to handle that success.
Right.
To shoulder it well, and to move forward in the direction I think God has for you.
Yeah. I think to step into it fully. It's funny, we had just driven in. So we drove from Spokane into Boise. We spent a night at my parents' house and then left for the rest of our trip down. And we went through Utah and a little bit through Arizona and Nevada. It was just we actually stayed at St. George, Utah, slept for a couple hours, and then left on the road again. So it was just this really long drive with all of our things, with 2 of our babies. And Brandon, we got in on Saturday and we just were so exhausted. We had our entire U-Haul to unload.
Did you have Louie too?
And Louie, yeah, I always forget. He was so good. I totally forgot about Louie.
So Louie is the dog, y'all. Just
yeah.
So you know,
Louie's the golden doodle. Yeah. And he's acclimating so well. But we promised ourselves we're going to bust out some work and then unload a bit. And then Sunday we're sleeping in, we're waking up and making a good breakfast, and we're going to the pool. We have this beautiful pool on the grounds here. And Brandon and I were just sitting in the pool with both of the boys, and we were in such gratitude. We were so thankful for finally being able to just be here, not just after that drive, that 2-3 day journey down, but just after all of the work and all of the resilience that we really had to lean into the last couple of months to see this dream through. We had this moment of just pure gratitude. And maybe without this long process, this arduous process, we wouldn't have quite appreciated it as much, and we wouldn't recognize the capacity of that we have to hold on to faith and to hold space for one another, to even, you know, it's been incredible. But the depth of our gratitude, I think, supersedes the depth of our stress or our despair or our struggle. Like, we are just so grateful and so thankful for arriving and being able to come onto the other side. It's not, no piece is taken for granted. Nothing is taken for granted. And that's a pretty cool space to be in.
100%. And that, everything you guys went through might have also just been a place where God wanted you guys to arrive in your marriage. I mean, I know you guys have a really strong marriage, but you two were solid the whole time through that process. And neither one of you was talking the other person out. You had a vision for your family, you pursued it, and then you got to that sweet point the other day where you got to see, like, hey, we believed in this for ourselves, for life together. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's just that God takes us through the process as a couple because there's work he wants to do there. He wants us to lean into each other. He wants us to go through a struggle where it's not divisive.
Yeah.
But everything else might be crazy, but the two of you are able to weather so much more now because you weathered that in a great way. And that's such a marriage builder. And that who knows who was watching you go through that in your marriage, who needed that for their own.
Yeah.
I always think too, sometimes the struggle isn't for anything for us, it's for who's watching.
Yeah. You know what's crazy is I didn't really see, I mean, we were both noticing, like, hey, despite us losing our shit on everything else, like, we haven't lost it on each other. And I wonder, as you were talking, I was like, I wonder if that was, because we do have a really strong marriage, but I wonder if this has been work that is to prepare us for, I mean, who knows what opportunities are going to come being here. And I think that our marriage will need to be really strong for us to really step into big opportunities. And the work, I guess, that has been done, the foundation that has been built in the last couple of months is just for that. And I think that God is so good to know what we need and to prepare us, although we don't feel like we're being successful. We may not recognize how he's, like, helping us and building us and refining us. We just see our pain and our struggle. But I think that he's so good to see what's already in front of us, that he's laying down the foundation for us to be strong into that new opportunity.
100%. And you won't see it until you're in the new place, the new opportunity, the whatever. And then you'll be like, oh, that's what that was.
Yeah. Or you may not even ever know. You're just experiencing something lighter and easier. And you think that, like, oh, of course, like, Brandon and I have been solid. Like, of course that we would be doing this so well. Well, you're doing this so well because you went through that work. And you might not even know it. But I just feel like that's why I don't understand how people live lives without, like, knowing that God is in it, without giving God, like, pieces of themselves. Because I think he's just such a vital, like, he just keeps you in peace, like, he keeps you whole, he keeps you together, and he's just thinking about things that you don't even think about. He's planning things that you don't even know to he's building dreams that you don't even, like, have the capacity to envision, but he does. And it's incredible to have that sword, just to have that, like,
I think when things are going to pieces, God is the peace. You know, like he is the peace that surpasses all understanding always. And I don't know how I would have ever believed in a different story for myself had it not been for knowing God's grace. And, you know, I would have believed only the bad things. I would have believed that I deserved the abuse, that all of those lies that you tell yourself because you're so full of shame at the thing that happened to you. I would have believed them. I would not have known that God had a beautiful story yet to be written for my life outside of the pain of my childhood, of what had happened, you know?
Yeah.
So, okay. If anyone watching, we'll do if there's any anyone who has a question, feel free to fire it off as we wrap up in the next few minutes. But you have a session coming, so I want you to talk a little bit about what you've got coming up here so we can all hop on that and be ready to be taken to church.
Yes. I don't know why it went dark for a second. So
mine's been going dark, like in and out, like fading in and out. I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know what the deal is. But yes, so I do a live Zoom training every single month. This is the second one. And on Wednesday at 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I'm talking and training women on the process of thriving through the transition. So I've taken what I've learned in the last 4 months and beyond, and have put together a training that will help you through the process of transition so that you're not missing out on the opportunities to grow through leaving one space and entering another. And I think that this is something that you will be able to use over and over as you are growing from one phase into another. And I think that it's just so valuable to be aware and to be in control and to be empowered by your circumstances. So I'm excited to do that. It'll be an hour-long training, and then I'm doing hot seat coaching at the end. So if you're currently in transition, or if you have an issue and you need perspective, truth, if you want to like analyze and strategize, then I shut off the recording and we all go into hot seat coaching, and I dig in and I empower you to move through whatever it is that you have. So it's a fun space. And I don't know, it's a way that I can connect with the amazing women in this community and just give purpose to what I've experienced. So I always take what I'm going through, and I hope my hope and desire is that it helps other women be more empowered and live more intentionally and pursue their audaciousness with faith.
I think that's so good. I'm terrible at transition, honestly, because what did we decide I was? Corina and I were talking about this. I'm very structured.
Yeah.
Very structured. That's a different way of saying control. Like I don't want to be controlling.
No.
And there's fluidity, but I like a routine, and I thrive my best in a certain, like, every day. My alarm goes off at 5. I have my time with Jesus, a cup of coffee. I put my trainers on. I head to the gym. Like, I'm just like, these are what I do in the morning. So then if my routine gets a little like because when we moved last summer and my routine was super wonky, I was like, I am not thriving in transition. Like I could. And so for people like me, I just think that that's such a great conversation, because I can kind of like grit my way through a hard circumstance easier than I can thrive through transition.
Yeah.
I can handle curveballs thrown my way more than I can even something planned out, because I'm like, this is throwing off my structure.
Yeah. Which I love. I honestly, like, I thrive in structure as well. Like, not to the degree that you do, but I do appreciate a good routine and structure. But if you find yourself that you've been in a transitionary period for far too long, like you can't remember the last time that you haven't felt like you're in transition, like you're not settled, you're not rooted, then you honestly haven't gleaned the benefits and haven't learned the lessons that the transitionary period has meant to teach you. So be intentional, like wake up to the opportunities to learn instead of continuing to just grit through and like buckle down and just trying to like survive to the other side. I think that that's the entire premise behind enjoying the process and enjoying the journey. If you're not, you miss the whole point, and the end result is not as sweet. If you enjoy the entire process, by all means, like, you have lived life to the intentional full purpose instead of just waiting for that like snack at the top.
You know, if you're enjoying the whole process, you might be medicated. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, enjoying it with a like little bubble, little rosé, whatever you need to do.
Whatever you need to do.
But I mean, I'm not saying that you're like psycho happy the entire time, but by all means, like, there's power there. There's opportunity there. I think that it's meant to evolve you. It's not supposed to always be flowery and easy and like oh my gosh, so fulfilling. It's supposed to be hard, but in a good way, in a beneficial way.
Kim Cooey just said motherhood can feel like one giant transition.
Yes.
Well, yes, 100%, Kim. And that you have been a mom for, I mean, you have been a mom of babies for so many years in a row with your 4 that you haven't transitioned to a phase of older kids yet. Neither really have you, Corina. I mean, your baby is still a baby, not even 1 year old yet. So you haven't. When is Cash's birthday? Is it
August 3rd?
Okay, so right around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you haven't yet hit that season either of life with bigs. Like it still feels transitioning for me, but they're so much bigger that it's not the transitioning from sleeping, like not sleeping to sleeping through the night to so when they're little, you have so many constant transitions. And when they get bigger, you're just trying to keep them on the straight and narrow. Like those sorts of transitions. But okay, so 2 more things I want to talk about real quick before we wrap up. One is, I thought you said something really important where you talked about you and Brandon sitting in the pool, the kids were playing, and you just sat there in that moment. I think that so often, once we've pushed through and we're on the other side and we're just in that place of joy, of the resilience is just shining through of what we've gone through, I think we can rush right through that and we can miss that moment. And I think it does a discredit to ourselves and to our Father who loves us when we don't take time to recognize the joy on the other side and not rush through that to whatever's next. We're always in such a hurry. Like, okay, we're here. We've got to accomplish. And yes, we're all busy, but I think there is no timeline on allowing yourself to be happy after a time of struggle. You don't have to immediately reach for another struggle. Like you can just like have a few minutes in that, or a few weeks or a few months or a year or however long of just being like, we accomplished something that was really hard. And now we're just going to sit in the calm space and the joy of the other side of this.
Yeah. Well, I think that if you are, confidence is kind of built there. Like you kind of take on, I think we all can use a little bit more confidence, like true, genuine confidence. And if you are celebrating, then you are recognizing the strength that it took to get you to that place. And that builds your confidence. And it's not a sense of falseness either, or your, like narcissism. It's just genuinely, that was hard. And we made it through. That feels so good. And you I think even you build the confidence that, I can do hard things and they're not going to kill me. And that makes you so much more capable of taking on hard things moving forward, even bigger hard things that are going to challenge and grow you even more. And the celebration can be even bigger next time. So I think when you celebrate, you are able to take on confidence and accept that. Instead of just assuming I'm constantly in the struggle, I'm constantly in transition and dissatisfied and unhappy.
Right. Yeah. I think we have to take a minute to let ourselves feel the true peace and happiness and joy of the accomplishment. Yeah. And I think that that's honoring. It's honoring to the situation we've been through. It's honoring to ourselves. It's honoring to our spouse when we don't automatically reach for another struggle. Like, I think it's just honoring all the way around to the process that you've went through.
Yeah.
Okay, well, as we're gonna wrap it up, so this is my new question that I'm asking every guest.
Okay.
You're now on your second appearance, episode 7. So you get my new question. You got my old question, you get my new question. So
love it.
What are you currently your best next steps that you're putting into practice right now? It can be a big thing. It can be a little thing.
Well, my most immediate best next step is going to the pool and relaxing.
It sounds like a good one. We're on our way there this afternoon too.
You're what?
We're on our way to the pool this afternoon too.
Oh, good. I think that for the best next steps for me is to create intentional routine. Brandon and I were just talking about this morning, creating intentional new routine and new normal, because I think that when you come on the other side of transition, you need to, you need things to be settled. Like you need things to be, there needs to be a rhythm and a pattern. I work best under a rhythm and a pattern, and I want to be intentional in creating those patterns for our family and for my business. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. I think that that's a great best next step, especially in a time of transition, because it will help you develop. It'll help be that springboard into the life you want to build there.
Yeah.
So I think that's really a good one.
Before I get going on growth,
right.
before I start doing all the things and getting plugged into the community, I want to make sure that I have routine and structure for my foundation here, our life here.
Yeah, I think that's so good. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Corina, can you tell everyone where to find you?
Yes, I'm Corina Tripon on Instagram, and I'm at gingerrooted.com. And you guys can sign up for the workshop next Wednesday in my link, the link in my profile. It's called Thrive in Transition.
And are you Corina Tripon on Facebook as well?
Yes, yeah. I always forget about Facebook.
I know, but we can't forget about Facebook because there's still a lot of people on there.
It's true. It's true.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Corina is my dear friend, and I loved talking about this with her, especially right on the heels of her big time of transition. And I watched her walk through that with so much resilience. And so I just want to encourage you today to choose resilience in your own path. There is a better story for you on the other side of whatever you might be going through.
Awesome.
Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Ems.
Thanks. Love.